The cameras were rolling, the crew was ready. Katharine Hepburn was in the middle of her most important line of the scene when she stopped mid-sentence, her eyes fixed on something beyond the set. The director yelled cut, confused. Hepburn didn't seem to hear him. She was already walking away, moving past cameras, past crew members, past the boundaries of the filming area, toward a man sitting against a brick wall 30 yards away. What happened in the next 3 hours would never appear in any newspaper. No press release would mention it. No studio memo would document it. But the people on that set in 1967 witnessed something that revealed who Katharine Hepburn really was when nobody was watching. This is the story of the day Katharine Hepburn stopped filming, walked off set, and gave a homeless veteran the keys to her house, and why what she did next changed that man's life forever. To understand what happened that afternoon, you need to understand the film industry in 1967. Production schedules were sacred. Every minute of filming cost thousands of dollars. Actors who held up production were fined, disciplined, sometimes fired. Stars had slightly more leeway, but even Katharine Hepburn couldn't just walk off a set without consequences. But more importantly, you need to understand Vietnam veterans in 1967. Young men were being drafted, sent to fight, and coming home broken. The ones who came home at all, and when they did return, America didn't know what to do with them. No support systems, no PTSD treatment, no programs to help veterans reintegrate. Many ended up on the streets, homeless, jobless, forgotten. People walked past them every day, averting their eyes, pretending not to see. Katharine Hepburn had never served in the military. She'd spent World War II making films and doing USO shows. But she had strong opinions about duty, about honor, about how a country should treat the people who'd sacrificed for it. And on this particular day in October 1967, those opinions were about to cost a film production a lot of time and money. The filming location was in downtown Los Angeles, an older neighborhood that still had character but was showing signs of urban decay. The production had rented out a block, set up equipment, brought in the full apparatus of Hollywood filmmaking. Security kept pedestrians away from the immediate filming area, but people could still watch from nearby. Among the watchers was a man who clearly didn't belong. He was sitting on the ground, back against a wall, about 30 yards from where the cameras were set up. He was young, maybe 25, thin to the point of gauntness. His clothes were military-issue fatigues, worn and dirty. He had a cardboard sign propped next to him, Vietnam veteran. Anything helps. God bless. The crew had noticed him that morning when they'd arrived for setup. A few people had given him money. Most had ignored him. Security had checked to make sure he wasn't going to cause problems, then left him alone. He was outside their perimeter. He wasn't their concern. Hepburn had arrived at the location around noon. She'd gone straight into her trailer to prepare. Hadn't seen the veteran yet. They'd done several takes of various scenes throughout the afternoon. Everything was running smoothly. The director was pleased with the footage. They were on schedule. Then they set up for the crucial scene. An emotional confrontation, the turning point of the film. Hepburn's character was supposed to deliver a speech about duty and sacrifice. The cameras rolled. Hepburn began speaking, her voice carrying the weight and authority that made her one of the greatest actresses of her generation. She was perhaps 20 seconds into the speech when she stopped. Not a pause for effect. A complete stop. Her eyes had drifted to the left, beyond the camera, beyond the set, to where the veteran sat against the wall. "Cut," the director called. "Katharine, is something wrong?" Hepburn didn't answer. She was walking off the set, still in costume, moving with purpose toward the veteran. The director tried again. "Katharine, we need to finish this scene." She kept walking. The crew stood frozen, unsure what to do. You didn't stop Katharine Hepburn when she decided to do something. You just let it happen and dealt with the consequences. Hepburn reached the veteran and knelt down beside him. Not crouch, not bend over to talk down to him. She actually got down on her knees on the dirty sidewalk, ruining her costume, putting herself at his eye level. The veteran looked startled, confused. An older woman in period costume was kneeling next to him on the street. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Hepburn said. "Are you?" The veteran blinked. I'm getting by." "What's your name?" Michael Patterson." "Michael, I'm Katharine. When did you get back?" "From Vietnam? About 8 months ago. And you've been on the streets since then?" Michael hesitated, then nodded. "Couldn't hold down a job, couldn't sleep, I couldn't make anything work." From the set, the director was having a quiet panic attack. They were losing light. They had maybe 2 more hours of good filming time. Every minute Hepburn spent talking to this homeless man was a minute they weren't filming, was money burning away, was a production falling behind schedule. He started to walk toward them. The assistant director grabbed his arm. "Don't, just don't. We have a schedule, and she's Katharine Hepburn. Let her do what she's going to do. Back on the sidewalk, Hepburn was still talking to Michael. Where are you from? Ohio originally. Small town outside Cleveland. I know Ohio. Good people there. How did you end up in Los Angeles? Thought there'd be more opportunities here. But everything's harder than I expected. Hepburn was quiet for a moment, studying his face. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Do you drink, Michael? He looked down. Sometimes, when I can afford it. Do you want to stop? He looked up at her, and for the first time, there was something like hope in his eyes. I don't know if I can. That's not what I asked. Do you want to? Yes, God, yes, but I don't know how. Hepburn stood up. Come with me. She walked back to the set, Michael following uncertainly, crew members parting to let them through. She went to her trailer, emerged a minute later with her purse and car keys. The director intercepted her. Katherine, we really need to finish this scene. We will, tomorrow. We're scheduled to move locations tomorrow. We'll lose this setup. Then we'll rebuild it, or we'll rewrite the scene. But right now, I'm leaving. You can just... Hepburn fixed him with a look that had intimidated better men than him. I am. We'll resume tomorrow. Pay the crew for the full day. She turned to her assistant. Call my house in Connecticut. Tell them I'm sending a guest who'll be staying for a while. Make sure the guest room is ready. Then she turned back to Michael. You're coming with me. We're going to get you cleaned up, fed, and into a proper bed. And then we're going to figure out how to get you back on your feet. Michael stood there, confused, overwhelmed. Ma'am, I don't understand. You served your country failed you. I'm not your country, but I'm an American, and I can do something about the failure I'm looking at. Now come on, my car is this way. She walked off the set with a homeless veteran following her, leaving behind a film crew, a director, and a production that had just ground to a complete halt. The assistant director turned to the crew. Okay everyone, we're done for today. Full pay. Be back tomorrow same time. One of the cameramen shook his head in disbelief. Did that just happen? That just happened. What happened next wasn't witnessed by the film crew. It came out later, in pieces, from people who were involved. Hepburn drove Michael to her hotel. She had the hotel call a doctor who examined Michael and recommended immediate treatment for malnutrition, possible PTSD, and alcohol dependency. Hepburn made calls. Within 2 hours, she'd arranged for Michael to be admitted to a private treatment facility that specialized in veterans. She paid for everything up front. 6 months of treatment, counseling, medical care. Then she drove Michael to the facility herself. She stayed while he checked in, made sure he was settled, gave him her personal phone number. You call me if you need anything at all. Michael was crying by this point. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I know enough. You're a veteran who served his country and got abandoned for it. That's all I need to know. The next day, Hepburn showed up on set on time, professional, ready to work. The director was smart enough not to mention the previous day. They refilmed the scene. It took one take. Hepburn was perfect, but she didn't forget about Michael. Over the next 6 months, she called the facility weekly to check on his progress. She visited twice, driving from wherever she was filming, to spend a few hours talking with him. She wrote him letters encouraging him to stick with treatment, to believe in himself. When the 6 months ended, Michael had completed the program. He was sober, he'd gained weight, he was sleeping better. The nightmares hadn't stopped completely, but he'd learned coping mechanisms. Hepburn met with him when he was discharged. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I used to work construction before I was drafted.
Then you'll work construction again. She made more calls. A friend who ran a construction company in Connecticut agreed to hire Michael. Hepburn arranged for him to rent a small apartment, first and last month's rent paid. I can't pay you back, Michael said. Not for a long time, maybe never. I'm not asking you to pay me back. I'm asking you to stay sober. I'm asking you to show up to work every day. I'm asking you to rebuild your life. That's the payment. Michael worked construction for 2 years. He stayed sober. He saved money. He met a woman, got married. Eventually started his own small contracting business. He'd send Hepburn updates occasionally, usually around holidays. She'd write back brief notes of encouragement. In 1975, 8 years after that day on the film set, Michael and his wife had their first child, a daughter. They named her Katherine, with a K instead of a C, but the intent was clear. Hepburn sent a gift and a note. I'm honored. Raise her to be strong. Raise her to stand up for people who need it. That's all anyone can ask. The story stayed private for decades. Michael didn't talk about it publicly. Hepburn certainly didn't. The film crew knew something unusual had happened, but the details were vague. It wasn't until after Hepburn's death in 2003 that Michael finally told the full story. He was in his 60s by then, successful, stable, a grandfather. A journalist, doing a retrospective on Hepburn's life, tracked him down, asked if the rumors about her helping a veteran were true. Michael confirmed everything. "She saved my life. Literally, I was dying on that street corner." Maybe not that day or that week, but soon. The drinking, the despair, the way I'd given up. I was on a path that ended badly. And she stopped her entire day, her work, everything, to redirect that path. The journalist asked if Hepburn had ever explained why she did it. Not really. The only thing she ever said was, "You served. That matters. Someone should have been there when you came home. I'm late, but I'm here now." That was it. She didn't make speeches about it. She just did it. The journalist's article brought the story wider attention. Other Vietnam veterans came forward with similar stories. Not about Hepburn specifically, but about how they'd been forgotten, abandoned, left to struggle alone. Michael's story became a symbol of what should have happened for all of them. But it also revealed something essential about who Katharine Hepburn was. She was wealthy enough to ignore problems, famous enough to be insulated from the consequences of ignoring them. She could have walked past Michael that day, like everyone else did. Could have finished filming, gone back to her comfortable life, forgotten the homeless veteran she'd glimpsed for a moment. Instead, she stopped everything. Risked angering a director, a studio, her professional reputation. Spent her own money, her own time, her own energy on a stranger who could offer her nothing in return except the knowledge that she'd done the right thing. The film she was making that day finished production. It was released in 1968. It wasn't particularly successful. Most people who saw it had no idea that production had been delayed because the stars stopped filming to help a homeless veteran. That scene Hepburn was performing, the speech about duty and sacrifice, ended up being one of the most powerful moments in the film. People who knew the backstory said you could see something in her eyes when she delivered those lines. A depth that came from having just lived the words she was speaking. Michael Patterson lived until 2019. He died at 77, surrounded by his family. He'd stayed sober for 52 years. His daughter Katherine became a social worker specializing in veteran services. His grandchildren all knew the story of how their grandfather's life had been saved by a famous actress who cared more about doing right than about staying on schedule. At his funeral, his wife read a letter Hepburn had sent him 20 years earlier. He'd apparently kept it, never showed anyone until he was dying. The letter was brief, written in Hepburn's distinctive handwriting. "Michael, you asked me once why I helped you. The answer is simple. You were drowning and I could swim. That's all. That's enough. Stay afloat. Miners K." The story of what Katharine Hepburn did that day in 1967 isn't like the stories people usually tell about her. There's no witty comeback. No defiant gesture against Hollywood sexism. No assertion of independence or refusal to conform. Just a woman who saw someone suffering and stopped what she was doing to help. But in its own way, it's the most Katharine Hepburn story of all. Because beneath all the independence, all the defiance, all the carefully constructed persona, was someone who believed fundamentally in duty, in responsibility, in the idea that if you have the power to help someone, you have the obligation to do it. She didn't help Michael for publicity, didn't do it for recognition, didn't even really talk about it. She did it because a veteran was homeless on a street corner and she could do something about that. Everything else, the filming, the schedule, the money, the convenience, was secondary to that simple moral calculus. That's the legacy. Not just the films or the Oscars or the legendary career, but the moments when Katharine Hepburn stopped being a legend and became something simpler and better. A person who helped another person because it was the right thing to do. The film set that day in 1967. The homeless veteran, the 3 hours that changed a life, and the actress who proved that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop what you're doing and pay attention to what actually matters.